Park Ranger Thomas Reed had spent 17 years working in the Smoky Mountains. He knew every trail, every sound of the forest, every current of air that shifted with the seasons. But that October night felt different. The air was thicker, filled with the kind of silence that comes before storms or tragedies. No crickets, no owls, not even the distant echo of deer, only the muffled rustle of dry leaves, moving as if something large was crawling among them. Reed was doing his usual patrol through a restricted area known as Black Valley, closed due to landslides. No one was supposed to be there, but for 3 nights in a row, strange lights had been reported on the hillside. He assumed it was poachers. He switched on his flashlight, checked the tranquilizer rifle in the vehicle, and noted the time in his logbook, 9:13 p.m. Just then, the radio crackled, a short burst of static followed by a faint, rhythmic breathing. He answered, but there was no reply. It wasn't the first time that happened, though something in that sound made him stand still. He climbed into the truck and followed the gravel path. The fog hung like a heavy curtain, and the engine's noise seemed unnaturally loud in the stillness. The road narrowed until it curved alongside a stream, where he stopped. The smell of wet earth and rotting wood was so strong it seemed to seep from the ground. Reed got out and swept the beam of his flashlight across the trees. He found something odd, an old backpack caked in mud, leaning against a trunk. Inside were a broken camera, damp clothes, and a partially erased ID card dated 3 weeks earlier. He followed the muddy tracks deeper into the woods. A few yards ahead, he found broken branches, as if someone or something had run through at high speed. The strides were long, spaced far apart, and disappeared into the darkness. Instinct told him to turn back, but duty pushed him forward. He walked in silence, the flashlight low, following the disturbed leaves. The farther he went, the stronger the smell of wet animal fur, the thicker the air. Then behind him, a sharp crack. He turned the light. Nothing. Only trees frozen in place, their shapes warped by fog. He kept moving until he reached a small clearing where the mud was covered in prints. Not boots, not hooves. Bare footprints, enormous, sunk deep into the earth as if left by something impossibly heavy. Reed felt his throat tighten. There was no logical explanation for them, yet his body knew he wasn't alone. He turned off the flashlight. The forest held its breath. Then came a sound, a distant, heavy knock, followed by another, closer. 2. Pause. 3. It wasn't an echo, it was a rhythm. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He took a step back, then another. Through the fog, he thought he saw a shape, motionless, tall as a young pine, its outline trembling in the mist. The air around it seemed to vibrate. Reed backed away without looking directly at it. By the time he reached the vehicle, his hands were shaking too much to start the engine. Finally, the motor roared to life, its noise like a scream tearing through the emptiness. He drove back to the outpost without checking the mirrors. He didn't write a report that night. He just left the radio on, in case that breathing returned. At dawn, he climbed the lookout tower again. In the mud, just a few feet from his cabin, were new footprints. Large, fresh. Since that morning, no one has patrolled Black Valley after dark. And every autumn, before the sun goes down, Thomas Reed closes the shutters of the ranger post, no matter what the regulations say.
Retired park ranger Michael Rowe used to say the forest never forgets.
He had spent 20 years watching over the eastern edges of the Smoky Mountains, but it was in his final autumn that he truly understood what those words meant. That November week, the park had asked him to escort a young photographer who wanted to capture sunset shots from the ravine of Gray Silence, a deep valley where the fog settled earlier than anywhere else. Rowe knew the area well. The terrain was treacherous, and the return had to be made before the sun was completely gone. The photographer, an enthusiastic man in his 30s, insisted on staying a little longer, chasing the perfect light. Rowe waited by the trail, watching as the valley sank into blue shadows. The cold came quickly, along with that silence that swallows every sound, as if the forest itself were holding its breath. By 6:30, the young man hadn't returned. Rowe switched on his flashlight and followed his footprints to the edge of the stream. There he found the tripod still standing and the camera lying face down in the mud a few feet away. There was no sign of the photographer, only confused marks in the dirt, as if he had backed away in a hurry. The ranger called on the radio, but the signal was cutting out. He decided to go a bit farther. The water ran fast, carrying leaves and branches, and on the opposite bank, broken limbs led upward toward the hill. He climbed carefully, each step crunching through damp leaves. The smell of wet earth and old wood filled the air. Higher up, the fog thickened until he could barely see his own hand. He stopped and listened. Nothing. No insects, no birds, not even the sound of the stream. Only his own breathing. And far away, a deep, deliberate crack. It wasn't a small animal. It was something large, heavy, moving slowly. He could hear the vegetation parting as it passed. Rowe aimed the flashlight, but the mist reflected it back, a blank, white wall. He took a step backward and tripped over something soft. A jacket, the photographer's, torn along one side as if ripped away in a single motion. The veteran felt a chill rise up his spine. He scanned the fog, but saw nothing. Still, the forest felt aware of him, its silence pressing from all directions. He retreated toward the stream, lighting a cigarette to steady his hands. Through the smoke and fog, he thought he saw a figure on the opposite ridge, tall, motionless, arms hanging at its sides. It didn't move, yet it seemed to be watching him. He blinked. The shape was still there. He stepped back and nearly fell into the water. When he raised the flashlight again, it was gone. He returned to camp with quick steps, never looking back. He reached the base just as night fully closed around the mountains. At dawn, a rescue team climbed to the ravine. They found the camera, the memory card still intact. In the last photos, the forest was bathed in dim light, fog creeping between the trees, and then something odd. A dark shape in the background, blurry but human, half hidden behind the trunks. In the final shot, taken seconds before the camera fell, there was only a vast shadow filling the frame, as if it had come too close. The photographer's body was never found. Rowe never again patrolled the ravine of Gray Silence. Every year, when the air turns cold and the woods grow quiet, he says the valley begins to breathe again, and that some silences weigh more than screams. It had been over a decade since the Harker brothers had seen each other. Life had pulled them in different directions. Daniel worked as an engineer in Nashville, and Ben, the younger one, was a mountain guide in the Smokies. In late October, they decided to reunite for a weekend of hiking, like the old days, Ben said. They set out early Saturday morning. The air smelled of damp leaves and the sunlight filtered weakly through the fog. They hiked for hours until reaching a small clearing where they planned to camp. Everything was fine until dusk began swallowing the color from the forest. "We should have headed back earlier," Daniel muttered, checking his watch. "I don't like being out here with no signal." "Relax," Ben said, with a guide's calm assurance. "I know where we are." They lit a small campfire and ate canned beans, but the peace didn't last long. From the edge of the clearing came a sharp crack, then another, closer this time. "Deer," Ben said, without hesitation. Daniel didn't buy it. It didn't sound light or quick. It was heavy, deliberate. The sound came again later, several times, circling the campsite like something pacing just beyond the light. Daniel was growing uneasy. "You're not seriously telling me that's a deer?" Ben pressed his lips together. "Maybe a black bear. We'll be fine as long as we don't leave food out." But both of them knew something wasn't right. Around midnight, Ben got up to check the perimeter. He returned a few minutes later, holding the flashlight low. "I found footprints, big ones, but not from a bear. They look human." Daniel gave a nervous laugh. "What do you mean?" "Look," Ben said, showing him a photo on his phone. The prints were long, bare, and fresh. Neither of them spoke again that night. At dawn, they found one of the sticks from the fire pit stabbed upright in the dirt, directly in front of the tent, as if someone had left a warning. Ben tried to stay composed, but changed the plan. They'd take a shorter trail back, following the stream. As they walked, the air felt different. No birds, no wind, only the faint sound of running water. Halfway down the slope, they saw movement on the ridge above them. Daniel caught sight of a tall figure wearing what looked like a hood or draped cloth. It wasn't any hiker. Ben shouted to let it know they were there, but the figure crouched and vanished among the trees. They quickened their pace. By late afternoon, they came across an old, abandoned cabin, the kind loggers had used in the 1950s. They decided to rest for a few minutes inside. The place reeked of mold and rusted metal. On the floor were dried mud tracks, recent ones. Ben peered through the cracked window. "We're being followed." Daniel didn't answer. He only noticed a flicker of movement outside, something low and fast, like a person watching them from the brush. They didn't wait to find out. They bolted downhill without looking back, running until they reached the gravel road that led to the park's parking area. It was already dark when they arrived, out of breath, hands scraped, boots soaked. When they told the ranger what happened, he listened quietly. Then he showed them a photo taken a few weeks earlier, a torn tent, scattered backpacks, and a note left by a missing hiker. "No animal does that," the ranger said. "But lately, we found signs of someone living out there. We just don't know who." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those bare footprints again, heard the stillness of the forest, and felt that quiet, human presence watching from between the trees.